In the late 15th century, Europe was a continent consumed by ambition and an insatiable hunger for wealth. The Ottoman Empire had seized the Silk Road, cutting off Europe's path to the riches of Asia forever. Born by the sea in 1451, a boy named Marco grew up learning the ocean's secrets. He studied maps obsessively, dreaming of a voyage no European had ever dared attempt.
Rejected, dismissed, humiliated. But Marco Ventori refused to stop.
August 1492. 3 ships, 90 men, and a world that would never be the same again.
The coast faded behind him, and the world he knew disappeared forever.
Ahead lay the Sea of Darkness, where sailors believed the world simply ended.
Week after week, nothing but empty ocean. The men began to whisper that their captain was a madman. They demanded he turn back. He showed them a false log and pushed them forward into the dark. Strange birds, floating seaweed, and lights in the darkness that no one could explain. 70 days. Then a white cliff in the moonlight, and the world shifted on its axis forever. He stepped onto paradise, and paradise had no idea what had just arrived. They came from the trees, curious, calm, and completely unafraid. They had never learned. They were not savages. They were a civilization, thriving, peaceful, and complete. They brought gifts, gold, food, trust, everything they had. They offered freely. That night he wrote in his journal, not of wonder, but of what 50 armed men could do. The seeds had been planted. Within months, paradise would become a graveyard. From the very first day, he had one thing on his mind: gold. He took them aboard his ships, not as guests, as unwilling guides. He planted a flag, read words no one understood, and declared their home, his property. Small deposits, river flakes, never enough. And his desperation. His men had crossed an ocean for riches. When none came, they began to simply take. He sailed home with gold, with birds, with plants, and with people taken against.
March 1493. Church bells rang. Flowers fell like snow. Europe had found its hero.
Behind the hero's horse, 10 human beings walked in chains. Europe threw flowers at them too. He knelt before the throne. He promised gold. He promised empires.
Songs were written, paintings commissioned, an entire continent celebrated, and saw nothing of what it had truly done.
While Europe celebrated, the Liani people were dying. No one noticed. No one asked.
Europe called it the dawn of a new age. It was, but this new age had already begun with chains.
The first voyage was exploration. The second voyage was conquest. The camp was destroyed. The men were gone. And he called it New Hope. They were assigned to settlers, given no pay, no choice, no escape. He did not bring disease deliberately, but his ships did.
The paradise he had described in glowing words was gone. In its place, Fus, a colony built on suffering.
Every 3 months, every person above 14, a fixed quantity of gold, or face the consequences.
Deliver the gold, receive a copper token. A piece of metal that said, "You are alive for another 3 months." Men, women, children, all of them on their hands and knees, searching for gold that was not there. In his journals, he wrote of quantities, of shipments, of targets. He never once wrote of suffering. They abandoned their villages, their crops, their lives. And then, the hunger came.
They abolished the system, eventually. But tens of thousands were already gone, and no decree could bring them back. His name was Guarani, and when they came demanding gold, he was the first to say no.
They struck at night and vanished before dawn. The jungle was their armor and their ally.
His resistance spread like fire across the island. For one brief moment, the colonizers were afraid.
Marco's response was overwhelming, methodical, and utterly without mercy. He was not defeated in battle. He was betrayed by his own people.
They executed him publicly, but they could not execute his story.
The priests did not come to pray. They came to justify. Religion was not their shield. It was their weapon.
They were not stealing land. They were saving souls. This is what they told themselves, and what they read the declaration
In Spanish.
to people who spoke no Spanish, then called what followed.
Lawful.
Hundreds baptized in a single afternoon. New names, new God. None of it chosen, none of it understood.
But one priest wrote down everything he saw, every atrocity, every name. He stood before the royal court and told them everything. Europe was shocked. Power had changed him. The explorer was gone. The letters reached Spain one by one, and the crown discovered that its conqueror had become a problem. Don Felipe Ortega arrived in 1500 with a mandate to find the truth. The truth. Don Felipe Ortega arrested the Admiral of the Ocean Sea and put him in chains. He wept in his cell crossing the ocean, not from shame, not for what he had done to others. He died a few years later, bitter, convinced he had been wronged.
Before he arrived, 400,000 people. 50 years later, a few hundred. This is not a political argument, it is a fact.
The disease moved faster than any army. A single ship, a single sick sailor. Disease weakened them.
They stopped having children. Not from law, not from force, but because the world they had known. What remained were fragments. A few hundred people, carrying the pieces of a world.
This is the true legacy of the Age of Discovery. Not the maps, not the trade routes, the
The world you live in today was built on what happened on that beach in 1492.
Discoverer or monster? The question was never the right one. The right question is, what do we do with the truth?